Hey, you like cars? Welcome. Another episode, another week. We are back for episode 91 of the CarQuicks Podcast. But this week, we're doing something a little different. We're switching things up because I had the opportunity to interview with the SEMA Organization. And if you don't know who SEMA is, that is from the event that I attended last year. Stands for the Specialty Equipment Market Association. It is an organization of over 7,000 members that represents the entire worldwide car culture, from creating to buying to selling to innovation to modification to anything that you have seen in the aftermarket industry. SEMA has been an organization associated with it. The gentleman I got to talk with is the vice president of events, Tom Gattuso, and he represents the team that brings together this event. What you see at the SEMA Show is a part of his hands and his team, from the way things look, from the artists that are chosen to be the theme of the show, to the event structure, to the vendors. It is a very big undertaking, and we had the time to spend an hour with him to just kind of pick his brain to see how he enjoyed the automotive industry, what got him into it, his role inside of the SEMA organization, and just the importance of this annual show. The reason why it's important is because of the impact it has on the U.S. economy at $337 billion, the over 1.3 million jobs that this brings in nationally, and the $52.3 billion in sales it has for just parts annually that the SEMA Show represents and brings in. So this is a very big deal. I'm excited for it. I loved the SEMA Show when I first went to it. I'm excited for going to it for 2025. And for this episode, just enjoy the conversation we had. We'll be back to our normal episode next week for episode 92. But until then, enjoy our conversation with Tom, and I'll see y'all around soon. Give you a little bit of background. So I run a podcast, obviously. It's called CarQuicks, and I started this a couple years ago because my wife encouraged me, because I'm probably talking the air off about cars, but I've been into the car world. I started as a career, don't do it right now anymore, but I started it as, it's always been a passion of mine and never went anywhere. I never lost it. It just kept growing and growing over time. And so I got to the point where I wanted to just kind of speak about it in a platform like a podcast, and also coincided with my own YouTube channel. So my own personal car is a Toyota GR Corolla, and I've modified it, put parts onto it. And I've used the YouTube channel, my journey with that car, to kind of also be another bit of content with that. And I'm at 90 episodes now, and it's been about 2 years of me going. And I just kind of now started getting my foot into the places that I've always read about, the SEMA Show being one of them. So last year was the first time I went, and I've read about the SEMA Show for since I was a child. Like, for years I've read about it. And there were times I tried to, thought about getting into it. But when I started this podcast, I realized, I was like, okay, this is my way to get into this world further, getting deeper into this world that I've been looking into, reading about. And so far it's been the blessing that I think it would have been for my idea of what I want to do in this automotive world. So when Diana reached out to me about interviewing people at SEMA, I was like, this is kind of a full circle moment, because last year being the first time, and then being able to meet and talk to people that are been kind of behind the scenes for all these years, it was an opportunity. So I thank you for just giving me a little bit of your time today, just talk and kind of just pick your brain and just see how it has been in your position as a VP inside of SEMA, and just kind of your own passions about the automotive industry and what you like as well. So
happy to be part of it. This is what our industry is all about. It's all about passion. I followed a similar one where I graduated college and I knew I wanted to work in the automotive industry, but I wasn't good at working on cars. I wasn't good at anything car related. But that eventually brought me to California, and I found events, and I've been doing automotive events for 30 years. So it was my way to be able to be in the automotive industry, but a different part of it.
That's nice. So what area in California are you in right now?
I'm in Southern California, in Orange County. And
Orange County, okay. I was
the next county over is where the Diamond Bar headquarters is for SEMA.
All right. I was actually born in California, in San Jose area. So the Bay Area.
Okay, yeah. I used to do the San Jose Auto Show. So if you went
Yeah, I
there,
was
the first 10 years of that event, I produced that.
as a child. I remember going there, early
Okay.
early
Yeah.
'90s, and then we
Yeah.
moved into the East Coast. So it's funny. Parents, we born in California. Parents born and raised in New York. So it was, the shift and change from West Coast to the East Coast. I currently now live
Yeah.
in Texas. So it's like I tell people I hit every coast. I've been around the
Yeah.
entire place as well too. But I want to ask you, just kind of start, what is what is it like in your role at SEMA? Like, what is your day to day that you need to do? Is it only in anticipation of the SEMA show that shows up in like November, or are you also have your hands kind of everywhere when it comes to different trade shows that maybe everybody knows about, but just ones that you are behind the scenes on?
Yeah, so my title is Vice President of Events, and it may as well be air traffic controller, or a friend of mine used to have his title be Harbor Master, because there's a lot going on, and I'm in a unique position where I can kind of watch what's going on and have this synergistic approach to making sure it's all under the same vision and coming to the same conclusion that we want. So
Yeah.
I have a team that does our special events, and they
Okay.
do a really good job at it. But like our Hall of Fame gala that happens in the summertime, or the banquet that happens on Thursday night at the SEMA Show, and some of the council and network events that happen throughout the year, they'll be
Yes.
able to help with that. So, there's a lot that goes into non-SEMA show stuff, but at the same time, we're working on multiple SEMA shows at the same time. So, with the construction that's happening right now at the convention center, you may have seen a little bit of it
Yeah. A
last
little
year
bit. That's
when you
all.
came. But that was a project. We started looking at what was going to happen from 2017 forward. So we didn't actually see the construction until the 2021 show. But in 17, we started to look at it, and we did things like resectionalize the show. So we moved the truck um, exhibitors to the West Hall instead of being in Upper South. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that happen just because there's changes in the marketplace and that type of
Yeah.
thing. So again, in a unique position where we're looking at the show, like 26 is pretty prominent in my mind right now, and we haven't even done the 25 show yet. But just
It's like
worried about
you're
like
mentally preparing already. It's like
yeah,
you
like
have
where are
to.
cars going to go? What's the experience going to be like? So there's this binding thing, which is this user experience that
Hmm.
happens year to year to year. So that's one of the things that keeps me locked in, is just what's the user experience going to be like this year, and how do I
Yeah.
make that progress forward into 26 and then into 27. So fortunately, by the end of this year, we should be done with the construction. And then we'll get into this new footprint and this new traffic flow, and really be able to capitalize on that. So it's never a dull moment, but at the same time, the show we're working on has a cycle. So I'm pretty
Yeah.
stoked, because right now, we're about to start laying out the floor plan for what 2025 is going to look like. So
Okay.
we spent the last 3 or 4 months getting applications, but now we've got this thing where it's going to come to life, and we're going to have our exhibitors pick their space, and we track all this live on and publish it onto the internet on
Yeah.
semashow.com. Have you
Yeah.
seen it before?
When they show the layout of it. Yeah. And
Yeah,
kind of what impressed me always is just how soon they talk about the next SEMA show. Because I never,
yeah,
like, when I was done with the one, it was like the same day they were like, yeah, get ready for next year. And I was like, I just walked out the door. I was
yeah,
like, but hearing what you're talking about, it makes sense now because of the magnitude of what you're planning and doing. It's almost like you can't even, maybe the rest period is like a couple weeks, maybe just to
right,
kind of reset. But it's like the reset is, here are all the meetings for the next plan. That's what it sounds like that you're
right.
describing.
And listen, if I do my job right, my team does their job right, you won't even notice we were there, because it's really all
Yeah.
about the exhibitors and the attendees and the media all getting together in this pop-up marketplace.
Yeah.
So, if you notice little things that we've done, like signage for the show office, hats off to
Hmm.
you. But if you just like, where's the show office? Oh, it's over there. Like, that's really the intent, is we've got all this stuff planned out. so that you don't think we exist. And I think that's one of the cool things when we can get done and people go, that was a great show. I met this company, I saw this new product, and I met this person. They don't talk about how the thing is set up. That's something the trade show nerds do, and we love it, and we're good at what we do. But at the end of the day, we hope you don't notice.
Yeah. I mean, if I was looking, when I was at the show this past November, being it my first time, I always read about like, sensory overload. There's so much stuff to see. It's just, you really don't understand it until you're standing there. Cause I remember like, as soon as I walked in and my wife was laughing at me because she was like, I can see your face. Like, you have to calm down. I was like, there's so much, like as soon as you came out, we went in that little Tesla tunnel, came outside. And as soon as I hit outside, I was just like, I'm staring at like 10 of the best built cars I've seen in a long time. And it was like, we're not even in the hall yet. I'm just walking through. Right. And it's funny because like we're trying to get to the media center to like get our credentials. And I'm like in between the cars. I already have my camera out. I'm recording stuff. She's like, we have to make it to the media room. I'm like, I spent an hour just out there, just walking through there. And when you see the show like that, when I was in there for all those days, I was there every single day. Then you understand like the logistics of what you're talking about. Because some things I would see, I was like, man, this is pretty crazy that you get like, let's say the lifted trucks. Like I never seen trucks that many, so large, so big. And I live in Texas. We have plenty of lifted trucks here. But even by my standards of where I live, I went there and I was like, to get this stuff here, I was like, to just plan and coordinate and have this stuff flow so that, like you said, when we come in on the first day, it looks like you've been there for weeks. Like you've just been set, not days or hours before where it got finished. And we don't see any of the, let's say, I say mistakes, but for lack of a better term, but just kind of like the things that you might notice, kind of like you're a perfectionist and you're working on something. Like if you're cooking a meal, you might know something's off. Everybody's like, this is amazing. You're like, they're like, I could do it even better. But you don't notice it. But that's what the fun part about the show was for me too, is just being able to seeing everything and then realizing the work it takes to create these booths, to make these events, to make these areas and the people that are involved in it. Because for years when you read about it in magazines, they talk about that. They're just like the work that goes into making the show, the work that goes into bringing the cars in here, the work that goes into building the cars out, and hearing terms like SEMA crunch and watching YouTube videos for years of people building out cars. And sometimes I would joke because I'd be like, well, if they know SEMA's coming, why does everybody have to come down to the wire? But then I was talking to somebody that builds car, and they're like, it's not even like you want to. It's just that some things just take time. Like if you're building something unique, if you're fabricating something, if you're getting parts, and then all of a sudden something gets held up, and then all of a sudden it's September, and you're like, we're getting down to the wire. So it's cool to hear like what you work through in that background of it.
No, and your experience is a perfect example of what made 2025 or 2024 a unique show for us, because of the construction, the normal entry experience that you would have had was cars amongst trees that were in this, what they call the Grand Plaza at the convention center. And we sat down as a show team and we said, okay, how do we replicate that? Because right now it's behind construction walls. So we got together with our show artist, Chip Foose, and we said, okay, we're going to build this entrance unit. I think it's going to be the most photographed entrance, or the most photographed part of the show. But we want it to seem seamless, and we talked to the people that can build that thing. And then we decided which cars were going to go there. And it was this whole thing about make it look like it's been there forever, knowing it's going to be the most talked about and most photographed part of the show. And it did. And it was one of those things where the people that built it were sitting there with tears in their eyes when they first lit it up the first night on Monday night. And they're like, well, why is this so emotional? It's like, because we've been talking about this for months and it looks so cool. And, and you can't get caught up in the moment, because I've got another 4 days to manage, and the team is like just in it. But it's really cool to hear that you walked out of the Tesla loop and looked out and was like, this is awesome. Because again, you didn't know that we put any work into that. Intuitively, we did a little bit. It's like, it just was this experience that you had.
It's almost like, for me, it's like, I'm thinking this is how it's been because I've never been there. So I come out, I'm like, this matches my expectations, because the SEMA Show for me has always been like up here. I love the aftermarket scene. I love modifications. I love hot rods. I mean, watch overhaul them. Like when you mentioned Chip Foods, I went through that
Yeah.
entire series. I've seen stuff like Pimp My Ride. I've seen all these shows kind of just growing up. And so when I went to the show, I was like, this has exceeded my expectations because it matched what exactly I thought it would be. Because sometimes when you hear about things you haven't been at, sometimes you worry that maybe you missed a golden era. You know, sometimes you go
Yeah.
and experience something and people are like, oh, you should have came here like 5 years ago or 10 years ago was really, really good. And that was one of my concerns. I was like, I hope I don't go here and I feel like I kind of missed out on what I was reading. But then when I was done and we had been through the days of it, I was like, no, this was absolutely everything I thought it was going to be. And it made me excited
Yeah.
to come back. And so think I had like I ran into some, people need polls and emails and like, you anticipating coming back. And I was like, I'm coming every year until I can. I was like, I don't know how you can dislike this show, or even if you hear some opinions online. I always say that sometimes the people go to something so many times, as humans, you can kind of become jaded where you're like, it's a SEMA show, it's just work. And when I was talking to my wife and I was like, yeah, I'm here next year and the year after and the year after that. I was like, I'm going to keep coming here because I was like, this is exactly what I thought it would be.
No, you're always going to get some negative criticism, right? And I look at it not necessarily like New York Fashion Week. Like you see some of the stuff that happens at Fashion Week and you go, who would wear that? When would you wear that? But that to a certain extent is what the SEMA show is this incubator of ideas. And a good idea sometimes is born from a bad idea. And you need to get feedback and you say, hey, what do you think of this square wheel? And people are like, well, that'll never work. Why would you do a square wheel? And it's like, well, what if we rounded it out? Like you can see exactly. like an idea just keeps getting forged and forged and forged. So I love the fact that people bring their ideas, their products, their trend, like here's what we built, and have people kind of either like it or not like it. Because if it's resounding no, it probably won't be built again. But if it's hey, that's pretty cool, and there becomes this group of people that like it, then you get to this place where you go, okay, we're on to something. Let's refine. Let's, do this, that. Because I remember the first time I saw a 20-inch wheel at the SEMA show. And I was like, oh my God, that is humongous. And then it was like a 24-inch wheel. It's like, oh, there's no way it can get bigger than that. And then the off-road industry said, here, hold my beer. Let me show you something. So
funny enough, I remember that era of the 20-inch wheel being pinnacle of like, we can go no bigger. We have far exceeded. Now, my wife drives a Toyota Sienna that has 20-inch wheels on it. So it's like the minivan has wheels that big. It's funny you mentioned the wheel thing because like, kind of funny side story. We go to this little car meet every Sunday in this Houston area called Catalina. And they have like the Porsche GT3s there. And so it's funny when you see newer cars next to the original, like older car, because like on that car, like the rear wheel is like a 21-inch wheel. And then like a gentleman had like an original one, had like an 18, or like, it looks so small and just kind of cute, but it's like, that's what happens. Things progress and they go a place that you didn't think would be there. And then years later, you're like, this is the norm. This is just what it is.
Yeah.
A question I wanted to ask you as well is what was like the car that kind of sparked your automotive passion, or what, I guess let's kind of get into maybe the cars you've owned, but what kind of led you this way? Why did you know that the automotive industry was where you wanted to go?
So for me, it started just as basic transportation, and I got into water-cooled Volkswagens. So I had a 73 Super Beetle, and I just became a Volkswagen guy.
I had MK2s. I had GTIs and GLIs. The boxy, I love the boxy ones.
That's exactly how I progressed, right? I was trying to figure out if I would do a dual carburetor setup or a Solex carb or whatever. And then it was like, okay, they've got water-cooled stuff. And I remember seeing this Volkswagen GTI Rabbit commercial. And I'm going to mispronounce the German word, but the guy got out of the car and there was smoke and he was like, Ausgezeichnet or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was like, oof. So as soon as I could, I got myself an 83 Rabbit GTI. It was black with a red interior. And I don't know the horsepower. I'm sure it was under 100. It was probably somewhere between 80 and 90 horsepower. But that car to me was just alive. And it was a manual shift car. and you could just run in the power band if you would.
It's
And
better
it
to
was,
drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where it just struck something in me where it was like, okay, this is cool. And I started to learn about companies like, BBS and companies that were supplying things for that car at the time. And it was like, okay, I need to work in this industry. I don't know what it is about it, but this really gets me energized. So at the time, I'm sort of opposite from you, where you started West Coast, went East Coast, and then now in Texas. I started just outside Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And
DMV area.
yeah. And it was one of these things where I was applying for jobs in the automotive industry, and then there was this weird hiring freeze. So it was like, okay, I've got to go one of two places if I want to work in the car industry. I've either got to go to Detroit or I've got to go to Southern California. And at the time, a lot of companies were moving their headquarters to Southern California. So I picked Southern California and really never looked back. I've been here almost 33, 34 years, and it's just been great. And I found this little niche in the automotive industry where I started by doing new car shows. So San Jose and Orange County and,
Okay.
little market shows. And I got to learn a lot about what it takes to put an event on, but I still have my finger on the pulse on some of these new cars. And I've always sort of been, not necessarily just like tried and true Volkswagen, but I've been still stuck on that feeling I got, call it the butt dyno, right? Where that GTI could just perform if you got it in the right power band. So eventually, I had my share of different cars. But in my driveway right now, I've got a 2013 Subaru BRZ that my son is now, this is his GTI, right? But it's the same thing. They lied about the horsepower, I think. Like, they said it had 250 horsepower.
Of what you talked about. It's
exactly.
Like, that's the engaging driver's car. I always have this discussion with people, like, because the city, like in Texas, we're very much about high horsepower. We got big straight roads. There's plenty of outrageously fast cars, but we get into this conversation. So like my love about the city GR Corolla that I have was because I came from, prior to that I had an S2000, and then I had a Subaru WRX hatchback. And so when I talk to people about engaging cars, I never really speak about the horsepower, because I always laugh and say horsepower is just based on how much you got in your bank account. I was like, you can build whatever you want. The limitation is just your bank account. Like, as far as what's available and what you can do, sky's the limit. But what you just discussed, just experienced when you had the Rabbit and now your son with the BRZ, there are certain cars that are just built in a way that engage the driver that numbers can't quantify. It's like, if you don't drive it, then you just won't understand. It's why people love the Miata. It's why we love the GR Corolla. It's why the BRZ or the GR86 is such a sought after car, because on paper you look at it and say, by today's standards, stuff is so fast. Like, if you look at EVs, if you look at the numbers that they show, it's like 500 horsepower, electric SUV. I was at an automotive event yesterday, and we're driving an Acura ZDX Type S. It's 500 from the factory. And I'm like, these numbers used to be associated with supercars. Like, it was a very special thing. Now it's like, you're just driving down the street, going to the store, and you're like, that car has 600 in it. But the engagement, I always say, it just supersedes everything. I aim for that when I go to drive cars and I experience them. It's like, is this engaging? Because that experience of driving it, like you said, when you get into that sweet spot and you're kind of connected to the car and you're driving it, it's hard to explain to people that aren't car people, but it's just one of the best experiences that you can have in a car.
No, and now my daily, because I've pretty much given my son, and he wants to keep it forever, but I've given my son the BRZ, but I'm driving an M240i right now that's also a stick shift.
Oh, excellent.
And I think I just got some lowering springs delivered while we've been on this call, but I've got an exhaust coming and some lowering springs coming, because you get this new life. Like, I drove it for 3 years as an M car, quote unquote, the little baby M, if you will. And then when I need to replace stuff, that's what's so great about the aftermarket industry is, I need to replace my exhaust. It's like, okay, let's get a performance exhaust and let's see if we can find a Remus and, like stuff like that. And it's where I kind of shine, where you get into some forums or you go to car shows and you look at stuff and you go, okay, I like the looks, I like the sound. You talk to the person that put it on, like, what was that like? So then you get stuck on what you think is cool. And that, again, it goes back to SEMA Show. It's like, I'm going to get this on my car. It's going to sound the way I want it to sound. My neighbors are not going to like the way it sounds, but it's like,
they're going to hate me in the morning.
Yeah, but this is what I think is cool. And I'm going to bring that to a thing, and other people are going to go, yeah, that was cool, or no, quiet that thing down. So we'll see how the cold start goes. After it warms up, this supposedly doesn't have a big drone, and I can control it. But that's the cool thing about the automotive industry is you can have a car that is just point A to point B. And it's just like your cell phone, where it's very useful, but you don't put a lot of thought into what makes it go. But then you can also get very analog, and call it like a Rolex watch, where you're looking at something that's very mechanical, needs some maintenance. You got to take care of it, and that's just part of the fun. And there's a $55 billion industry built around it. 1.3 million jobs in the U.S. are around this. $337 billion in terms of automotive aftermarket everything. So it's like, heck yeah, we've got a voice in D.C. and we're going to be able to protect this thing for a long time, which is great.
Yes, that's one of the things I like reading about when it comes to SEMA and that SEMA action and things that you guys do actually in, DC, when you're talking about these, not necessarily cases, but when you're talking about these things that you want to pass in these bills. And it is good to talk about that, because sometimes, like you said, if your neighbor's unhappy about like the exhaust, they kind of look at you like, oh, people just making noise. But when you speak about the jobs and the industry and the livelihood that it supplies to people and their families, you're like, this isn't just kids making noise. This is very much innovation. It's engineering. It's people going to school for it. It is people thinking outside the boxes, providing products and providing services. And it's an important thing to do. It's funny you mentioned about living on the East Coast, because I remember like early on when I was like always thinking about getting into the automotive industry. The funny thing when you're a young kid is I realized like California was a place I should have been. So I used to tease my father and my mother. So it was like, I'm into cars. We're in the wrong city. We're in the wrong thing. We're in New Jersey. I was like, no, like this is not where it's at. But I still got into it. The Volkswagen part of it is I got into that being on the East Coast because it was like huge there. The MK2s, the GLIs. I had a 240SX as well. The sad part about the 240SX is that after Fast and Furious came out, unfortunately, the attention to the JDM cars increased exponentially, and my car was always a target. So I just ended up selling it because I was like, I'm just stressed out. I would drive it somewhere, you park it outside, I can't even relax. I'm looking out the window. I'm like, I can't live like this. I was like, it's too much going on. But speaking about like your love of the cars, is your son following suit with you as far as like wanting to modify the BRZ? Because I know for BRZs, I have friends that have those and GRD6s. That aftermarket is endless. It's like there is nothing short of your imagination can stop anything you want to do on those cars. Yeah.
So wheels, tires, suspension, exhaust had been done to the car. So it's got a really great stance. And he's finishing college right now, so I think his enthusiast days right now are going to car shows. But I got to tell you, he started out, I gave him an SLR camera, something that we bought when he was born. And by the time, I think it might be 10 megapixel. Like by the time I gave it to him, cell phones had more megapixels.
Yeah. It was...
but my kid was that 8-year-old that would go to the Cars and Coffee and take 300 pictures.
Wow.
And he used to sit there as the cars were leaving and try to learn how to take the blurred background, but focus on the car shot. And, he was really into the high end cars. So, I would go through my SEMA Show run, and you get through it and you're tired at the end. And I've got an 8-year-old that's like, hey, can we go to the Cars and Coffee? So, I was going to probably, 30 of them a year. And he'd be that kid with the camera in his baseball uniform,
He's like,
shooting pictures
we can go
before the
back to
game.
back to these auto shows.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm tired. I was just doing it all day. He's like,
Exactly.
doesn't matter. We still can do another one.
But the bug is there, and
Yeah.
it's one of these things where, it's definitely bitten him. He wants to be able to keep and maintain the car, and he's liking the performance. We haven't quite gotten into the engine part yet. But it's like, how much do you want to really push that envelope for a daily? But we have these really cool conversations that I'm going to ask you. When you were, infatuated is probably the wrong word, but when you had your 240, and you wanted to park it away from people, right? So you get to a parking lot, you're like, okay, there's nobody over here. I'm going to park my car. Inevitably, you come back from where you were and someone's parked next to you. Like, how does that happen? Why does that happen?
It's funny because I'm still that way. Like, even with my wife's minivan, like I do it so much. It's funny. She's now turned into that. Like, we'll go to a store, something like Costco, and I'll see where she parks, and I'll like laugh, and she's like, it's your fault. She's like, I'm so used to you parking 9 miles away from it. I was like, I want nobody near me. But I've literally parked somewhere. The funny story that you have that, I one time went to Costco, and Costco parking lots are like 7 acres, and they're huge. I must have parked at the farthest corner humanly possible. Like, it was so far away. And I remember as I was about to get out the car, I remember a lady just came and parked right next to me. and I was just like so confused because there was like 50 spots near me. And I was like, what? Why? I was like, I'm here by myself, or I'm trying to remain door ding free. This is why I'm over here. I was like, no shopping carts near me. I want to stay as far away. I don't know. I feel like it's one of those when like the crowd moves and everybody follows suit, or like if everybody starts going one direction, everybody starts flowing that one direction. It's like they see that one lone car like parked, and people's mind is like, I have to park the car. So if they see your car parked first, they're just like, it's time to park. And you're like, no, you can keep going. You can keep going to the front. I'm over here for a reason. That's a funny thing. Car people, I feel like we're like that. We're like, let's get as far away from the front entrance and all of the chaos, and just have a clean getaway in case we need to, and nobody damages the car.
Yeah. No, for sure. I always used to find solace in, like, if someone's parking next to me, they must think, well, this guy's not going to ding my door. Because he just spent some time making sure no one would do that to him.
I have like, that's funny thought. I have like a double-edged sword with that. What I mean by that is sometimes when I'm in certain areas of town, like in Houston, that are very affluent, I'm more worried. Like, my wife was like, well, just park next to that Bentley. I'm like, see, here's the thing. I said, that lady, the Bentley to her is a Honda Civic to us. She doesn't care. She's been driving those her entire life. If it gets a door ding, they send it off to the dealership, and whatever repair has to be done gets done. I was like, that's a good point. I said that for them, it's nothing. They're like, so what? It's a Range Rover. I lease these. If it gets banged up, I go get. I was like, not for me. I was like, this is all I have right now. But that's a funny way to look at it. When it comes to like the SEMA showcase and the changing of like innovations in the industry, when it comes to like electrification, when it comes to like modifications, what gets you? What are you excited about, or what industry trends do you see kind of taking shape that you've seen kind of maybe over the years that excites you when it comes to the SEMA show and what you guys plan out?
Yeah, so one of the things that's happened most recently is electrification. And it's one of those where we've created an area of the show that we call the Future Tech Studio. And it features electric vehicles. Yeah, you saw it, right?
Yeah.
It features electric vehicles, but it also features hydrogen powered and synthetic fuel and a lot of different ways to propel your car. And one of the things that SEMA as an association just recently did was, we're great with electric cars, but we don't think that somebody should decide what you have to drive or what's in your driveway. So this future tech opportunity was something where we could show the industry, here's what is going on right now in the industry in terms of propulsion for cars. And then you start to look and you go, well, should we have an electric vehicle area at the SEMA show? But when you walk around, you see that it's already in trucks and it's already in racing and performance, and it's, it's already, to a certain extent, there's some EV crossovers that go into our hot rod and restoration area. So there's that old saying that the gas pedal doesn't know who's pushing on it. It just wants to be, or the accelerator, I guess you could call it. It just wants to be first. So if you're an EV component company, do you want to go into an EV area, or do you want to go into the racing area because you're trying to be first across the finish line? And what we found is the industry kind of decides that. So it's exciting for us to be able to showcase things and have, like Chevron talk about synthetic fuels or where they're seeing the future in 10 years. But then also have the parts manufacturers deciding, I want to be in racing versus I want to be near future tech, or I want to be over in the truck section. And the marketplace gets to decide. So again, when you talk about the stuff we do as a show not getting noticed, we're putting up this global pop-up commerce marketplace where there's buyers and there's sellers and there's media that kind of brings it out to the world. And that water finds its own level. Like, they decide where they want to go. We make sure that it's not crazy where it's like, well, you're an electric vehicle in the window tint area. That really, let's put you back, over kind of where you belong. But we do a little bit of it, but for the most part, it's cool just to see the industry come and say, this is what we're doing now. So for me, I get that feeling when we're done and everybody says, this is the best SEMA show I've ever been to, or I did the most business on Wednesday and I still had 2 more days to go that I've ever done. And, you hear those things every year, and it's hard for a 58-year-old show to continue to hear that. So that's one area. And then another one is just watching some of these niche verticals, I'll call it, continue to grow and then similarly infiltrate themselves into the rest of the marketplace. But overlanding is one of them. I've been following overlanding now for almost 20 years. And
that was actually a very exciting part of the SEMA show. And I don't have a overland. I don't have a 4Runner or a Land Cruiser, but funny enough, we had like really good time over in that section. I forgot it was like Hall C, but it was, we saved it for the end because I was just thinking like, I'm gonna save it for the end because I'm not, my channel and stuff I do isn't really overland. But when we were over there, I mean, we were looking at stuff for our van. I was like, well, you can add that. You can add just 10 on top. I was like, you can do this on the inside. I was like, because we like being outdoors, going to the beach, camping. And so I was laughing because when I was over there, I was like, if you owned a 4Runner or a Land Cruiser, a Tacoma, or any truck, that section probably ruined you. Like, you left there and like, I have so many ideas. It was like, but that's cool to see. Like, those areas that you wouldn't normally associate with, you see what they do and you equally become excited. It's almost to the point where you're like, I can see myself buying a truck, or I can see myself buying an SUV and kind of getting into this world.
No, that's exactly it. And I think one of the coolest things about the SEMA show is you can go from section to section, and then you can see it and you can say, hey, wait, I think I could do that, but I could adapt it to the thing I'm in, or this could be a new business opportunity. Like, we know that there's a bunch of there's a bunch of tire service centers all across the United States. We have found that 40% of their business comes from non-tire related stuff. So when they come in and they see suspension or they see window tinting or whatever it is, they go, hey, you know what? I've got a bay that doesn't get a lot of use. I wonder if I could do this thing in that bay and hire a tech to be able to do that and grow my business. So that's the cool thing, is you can walk around the show and you can say, hey, will this help my business? And you could talk to other people where they go, heck yeah, it'll help your business. It's 60% of what I do. And then all of a sudden you've got these two colleagues talking to each other, and the magic happens.
It's funny you mention that, because even from let's say a person that's coming in as an enthusiast and content creator with ideas, when you talked about like the business side of it, sometimes, like you said, when you see something in totality, when you see the product from them presenting it, being on the car, or even moments where they install it for you live and you kind of finally clicks in your head like, oh, I see what I can do with that. When we were there, my wife started asking more questions about wrapping cars, because she would see it and she was like, look, she was like, I could do that. And I was like, so we started seeing like demos, and we do have a plan to kind of start getting to that when wrapping my own car. And we kept looking at demos. She kept saying, she was like, this is actually like therapeutic and I could do this. Like, she kept looking at it. Here's why. She is like the person in the family that puts on screen protectors on any device. Like, I will literally hand it to her. So when she said that, I was like, you're the one in the family that if somebody has any type of screen, something that has to go on any device, they bring it to you. I was like, so she's looking at it like, oh, so it's just like on a bigger canvas. But being able to see like some of those demos when they were wrapping the cars in person, like, you never know if it's something that's even in your head, or maybe it's a thought that you had that you thought was fleeting or passing. And then you see somebody performing it in front of you and you're like, you're like, I've had this thought before, and now that I'm seeing it. And it's cool to have the exhibitors encourage people to either come and try it or be open to answer questions, because a lot of times, yes, everything we have is digital. We're on the phone, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, but sometimes the question you have kind of gets lost in the sea of comments. And it was cool to be able to get in front of these people and actually ask a question. Like, for me, when it came to my car, I got to talk to the gentlemen that work for like Forge Motorsports or EcuTech and these companies that are around the GR Yaris and GR Corolla. And I got to ask them questions that me and my friends have been bouncing off each other. We're like, well, what does this do? How do you do this? Or is this the case? And when I was going there, they were like, find these people and ask these questions. So like the first day I was like on a hunt. I was like, I got to find this company, this company, and this company. I have to find their representatives. I need to ask them just from the source. I need to know. And they were always excited to hear it. They were just like, we love seeing people come there and talk to us about what they're doing, because obviously being the first time you're there, you do have a side of you that's kind of like, I wonder if it's the reception is going to be what they want, or they're going to be tired of the questions. You know, sometimes we're all human. So sometimes you come, you're like, I'm about to ask you a question that you probably heard 50 times before I came here, but not the case. Almost every single person, and even some of the people I got to partner with when it comes to my own car and my own channel, was just me standing there having a conversation with them. And they would say, well, what do you do? And I would tell them, they're like, I want to work with you. And that was kind of the shocking part, because you wouldn't think that a conversation could kind of garner some of those relationships. But that is one thing I took from the SEMA show, was this is actually opportunity. Like you said, business ideas, things that you just didn't think about. Like you said, the empty bay in the shop, maybe we can do this and we can hire somebody to bring it in. So that's one of those very cool things from being at that show.
No, I always tell people, be careful who you talk to, because you may be friends with them for 30 years, or it may be a new part of your business that you're doing. So, talk to everybody, but come to the show and really just spend time to walk around and discover, because there's a lot to look at.
When it comes to like the aftermarket scene and the innovation, the products you're talking about, what are some of the challenges that you see that happens within this industry? Like, I know some of it is like, let's say we know the big topic right now is like tariff stuff, which I'm sure you guys talk about all the time. But because that's up in the air and we don't really know the overall end result, from a general standpoint, what are some of the challenges that SEMA has to kind of work their way through, not just from when it comes to planning the show, but just as an aftermarket industry as a whole?
Yeah, so for us, there's this look at what does the marketplace look like in 10 years? Mm-hmm. Because 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the show was very, very B2B oriented, and it was closed, and consumers couldn't get in, and we were one of the first shows at the time. It was web bloggers, but we were one of the first shows to recognize content creators and bring them in as media, because we saw this incredible opportunity that they had just in terms of broadcasting a message of what we're doing. But when we look at what the marketplace is doing and how it's changing, we really have to factor in how the end user is communicating now with people that make products. And COVID brought it to light. Like during COVID, people got a little bit of an influx of cash, but they also weren't leaving their house going to a brick and mortar store necessarily. So they were starting to call the manufacturer and say, hey, I want to buy your widget. And the manufacturers figured out, like, okay, we've had so many people want to buy our stuff.
We have no
storefront. We used to send it. Yeah. Like, how do I sell it to them?
Yeah.
So now the pipeline between a manufacturer of a product and an end user is more refined than it's ever been. So when you think about that and you put that in our pop-up marketplace on the show floor, you say, okay, do they only want to talk to B2B, which they used to, or would they be open to talking to consumers? And now we've opened the show up to consumers on Friday, and we've created this event called SEMA Fest that is this great exclamation point at the end of the week. But it allows these people to talk to consumers. And in 10 years and in 15 years, the way you're doing transactions on your phone and the way product releases aren't necessarily waiting for certain times of the year, it may continue to evolve. So we've got that direction that we're pushing in. But then at the same time, the marketplace itself is changing. So you're probably a perfect example. My son's a really good example. We were at a car show, and there's a guy in my neighborhood that has like a 64 Galaxy convertible.
Oh, the Ford Galaxy.
Yeah. And we're standing at that car, and he's like talking to at the time, I think he was 7 or 8. Hey, what's your favorite car at the show? And my kid was like, there's a McLaren P1 over there that's really cool. And the guy's like, you don't like the old cars? And he kind of, I don't know, on the way home, my son was like, why was that guy mad that I didn't like old cars? And I'm like, because that guy, the P1, when that guy was growing up, was a 1964 Ford Galaxy convertible, right? And he's put everything he's got into that car, and that's his thing. Like, you're going to be my age, and people are going to have restored a P1, and you're going to think it's the coolest thing you've ever seen, and there's going to be flying cars.
There's going to be part of the lot that your kids version of it.
Yeah. So we've got this changeover that's happening. So when you talk about like what's restoration used to be you brought your Mustang back to complete like stock.
Yes.
Now that could be a Supra. The JDM marketplace is heavy in that, and you can bring that in. So it's like, is there a transformation of what that is?
Yes.
So we've got to recognize some of these, different areas, JDM, lowrider, whatever it is, and just keep welcoming them into our community, because the community is so multifaceted.
Yes.
And if we can give these people a place to gather, business gets done and things start to evolve. So that's another way that we're trying to move things forward in the SEMA shows, a perfect opportunity to be able to do that. So I'm excited about it. And this year, we can announce, I don't know that we've officially announced, but we change our show artist every 3 years. And we've had a great run. We had Max Grundy, we had Alex Carmona, Ed Tilrock, and then most recently Chip Foose. And they all draw or digitally create art. For the next 3 years, the SEMA Show artist is going to be Larry Chen. And Larry Chen is a photographer. Yeah, but he's going to bring
I follow his channel. I pre-order his photography book. I love his work. I love it.
Yeah. So that's going to give us this whole new perspective on what does racing and performance mean to him? Because what we do is we tell the artists, like, create some pieces or give us some pieces that just encapsulate in one piece of art. What is racing and performance? What is SUV and off-road? What is, collision repair? And Larry's going to have Larry's eyes, and he's going to say, okay, this is resto, this is hot rod, this is racing.
Yeah.
And it's going to appeal to our core folks. It's going to appeal to new folks. It's going to appeal to people that just follow Larry Chen because he's a great photographer.
Yeah.
So like that's the opportunity. Chip Foose really hadn't done a lot of like drawing for art's sake, if you will. A lot of his drawing was car design. I'm going to draw to build a car. He found himself sketching and creating these incredible pieces because he knew what it meant to the industry. And success in that vein is, you bring in the JDM market or the lowrider market or Larry Chen as an artist, and people come like you did last year, and they go, okay, somehow I'm home. Like, I don't know how they knew the stuff that I thought would be cool, but it's here. I just got to figure out, the best ice cream scoop in the shop right now, but they all look good. That's kind of where where we're
Absolutely.
at.
What you're saying is true because, like, I always say everything happens for a reason, and the timing is when you get there. Like, is this a good time? Is this when it should have happened? Like, absolutely. The moment you were there is the moment it should have been. And I noticed that shift in SEMA probably like before I went, obviously I went last year, but even the year before that, when you're talking about the shift in content creation, media, and kind of expanding out, because I remember the early years of SEMA reading about it, a lot of times you would see it and I was like, there's no way I can get there because I'm nowhere in the fashion that would be like B2B in a sense like that. But when I was there this year, even when I was looking at some of the badges, I saw ones that like influencer, media, and I was talking to my wife and I was like, they're really opening this up because I think it matters a lot, not just because me as a content creator or podcaster, but as an enthusiast of the car. Like sometimes you would see this stuff and you'd only ever see it in a magazine. And then now, unfortunately, magazines aren't even a media outlet that you can rely on because either it's digital, and in your digital landscape, because my normal day-to-day job is in IT. So I always tell people, like, if your algorithm doesn't put you in front of something, you will never know it existed. And
Right.
until you can kind of curate that experience for yourself to get in front of some of the things that you see, I discover stuff on Instagram, somebody building something. I'm like, where did this come from? Like, where has this
Yeah.
person been at? People in the comments, like, I've been following this guy for years. And that's kind of the fun thing about discovering it. But at the show, it was seeing that introduction and involving the other areas, like the restoration of like JDM cars, because that's my love.
Yeah.
And growing up with it, I'm now old enough where I'm telling my son, because he'll see these cars, he's like, well, he's 11 years old. He's like, well, how come I don't see so many like Supras? And he's talking about the MK4 Supra. He's not even talking about the
Yeah.
new one. He's like, where are the other ones? I'm like, well, let me tell you. I was like, well, now I'm like, I'm my father at your age asking where are the Camaro SSs, where are the Novas, where are all these cars? I was like, so now these 90s cars are becoming those prized possessions that we have. And it's funny because he's still into it as well, but you catch moments when he's like looking at what the next thing is. So he's like, what's the next supercar? Like, he has Legos, like the last Lego he built is a Ferrari F40, and he likes modifying the Legos off of videos to change up everything, but he's adding elements of what he sees from like the aftermarket. Like, for instance, that Liberty Walk wide body F40, he's like, that's the greatest thing ever. Now, me, I'm someone can be a purist, and I'm like, I like it, I love it. But he'll look at a regular F40. He's like, well, how come he didn't put a wide body on? I was like, most people are never going to cut up an F40. I said, but he loves that JDM world so much so that, like, our plan is to go to the Tokyo Auto Salon, and me and my brother-in-law have been talking about it because we, going to Japan. And every time it comes up, he's like, are you going when that car show goes? And I always tell him, I said, I'll never leave you here if I'm going to that show. I said, I know how important it is. We're going to go. My wife's like, y'all going to go there in the cold of a winter just for a car show? I said, yes. I was like, absolutely.
Yeah. I've been really fortunate where I got to go to Tokyo Auto Salon and I saw them take the saws out to a Ferrari F40. So
I watched the video and I was like, even when he previewed that, because I remember he was on Instagram hinting that I'm going to do a special car. And I remember when we finally figured out that it was an F40 because he showed like some rear quarter part of it. I remember the comments were like, no way. And they're like, and I'm of the point where it's like, a lot of these cars to me, like, I love to see them driven. I love the risk takers of like RWB Porsches and Liberty Walk. I love that world. And obviously for some people, they're like, the pure side is kind of like, oh, you can't mess these up. They're already perfect. But loving SEMA in the aftermarket world, I'm like, that whole aftermarket is about your own expression. I was like, that's the whole point of it, is to kind of introduce something that you wouldn't have never seen or you've never done, but do it to your liking. Even when it comes to my own car, the stuff I work on, me and my friends do, we're always bouncing ideas like, okay, I like this lip kit. I want to get these wheels. I want to change this color. I like this wrap. And that's like the fun of it. That's why when I was at SEMA last year, seeing the expanse of like the Toyo Tread Pass, seeing the Built by Legends R34s that were inside of like that center hall, and just and being able to meet the gentlemen that worked there. That was kind of the really cool part, because I've seen them, you see them all the time, and I met them, and then meeting other influencers. I think my wife, she mentioned to me that Shmi 150, the gentleman I follow on YouTube. She's the one that introduced me to him because I was taking a picture of a car. She was like, "Isn't that the guy you follow?" I'm like, "What guy?" She's like, "The guy in London with the cars." I'm like, "Who?" And it's funny because I don't even know what she's talking about. And then she mentioned him, and I was like, "Oh, he's right there." And just that kind of that meeting point, being at the SEMA show and being able to meet different people was just what made that experience so cool.
No, it's definitely, it's a community, and you saw it. It gets really small really fast, right? It's a big community, but when you're there, it's very welcoming. And again, we're skating to where we think the puck is going. So people now have an opportunity to come see the show on Friday. We've created access, and we're going to have our tickets for that go on sale at the end of the month. So if you've got people that have always wanted to bucket list go to the SEMA show, but didn't think they could make it because they weren't in the industry, they now have an opportunity to go.
I have plenty of friends that saw my footage, saw what I did. And they were like, I knew it was a big deal, but they're like, you shot stuff, and it was just, and in the video, I'm laughing because I'm like, I'm only showing you a glimpse of what I am seeing. And you don't even realize that over my shoulder is something equally as crazy. Like, you hold the camera somewhere, you turn the camera somewhere else. You see, like, I love like Ring Brothers. Like, I followed them for years. So seeing their stuff in person and just being wowed by the level of craftsmanship, because you hear about it and then you see it and you're like, this looks like OEM level of construction. Like, you couldn't believe a car is like that. Before we go, when it comes to like the SEMA show and just like the legacy that it has, why do you find it so crucial for the industry as a whole? Like, what is the point if you were to talk to somebody and they say, why do you care so much? Why is this so important to you? What do you tell them?
So you can see it happening on the show floor. You can see this, you can hear it too, but there's this connection that gets done between people that make products and people that are eventually going to sell them or use them, if you will. But it starts to chart this course for what the future is going to look like. So, the first time electronic fuel injection was a thing, people were like, no, carburetors. It was like, well, hold on a second. This fuel injection thing, it's reliable. And it just starts to evolve, and you get more and more people doing things. So for me, that is why this show is so important, because it is just an industry homecoming. And I'm not joking when I say be careful who you talk to, because we've got people who have been friends for 30 and 40 years that met at the SEMA show. And it's just one of these things where the future's happening on the show floor. It just isn't going to manifest itself for 3 to 5 years, but that's the path that it goes on. So that's why I think it's so crucial for this gathering to happen. And again, it's this labor of love where I work for an association that represents all these parts manufacturers and all these companies that sell products, and it's just this great annual event where there's just this check-in, and for me that's where you find the satisfaction, is you built something that people don't even notice you did, and they come out of that going, that was the best one that I'd ever been to, and then you take a deep breath and you do it all over again.
Do it each year.
And it's just as fun.
So some quick, just rapid fire ones for you. What's your favorite like classic car? And classic doesn't have to be classic, just be something that's not current right now.
Yeah. So I would say, if I was going to go with my version of classic, it's probably a 62 Impala.
Oh, that's the classic of classics. That's one of those cars that's a staple in every generation. Even my own son saw a lowrider for the first time. He was like, what is that? Like, they do that? I was like, not as much, but it's around.
So I was lucky when I moved from the Delmarva area to California. I bought a 66 Impala convertible and drove that across country with a CB radio. So,
Oh man.
before radar detectors or whatever.
Yeah.
But I've always liked that Impala in general, like the 58, the 62, they just had this iconic appeal. Obviously 63, 64, has this iconic appeal with the three, round tail lights on each side. So, that car just makes a statement.
Yeah.
But that'd be my favorite classic.
I was going to ask you another question. I feel like you almost answered. I was going to say, what was a dream road trip? And then you said you bought an Impala and drove it to California. And I was like, I think he did one of them at least. But if you had to take another one now, what would it be?
I think I'd like to go through Europe. And I've never done like you buy the car and then bring it back to the U.S. program.
Like the European delivery for like a Porsche or something like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think that would be cool.
I've same boat. I don't know the name of the channel, but there's a gentleman I follow that does POV of driving these roads in like Tuscany, Austria. Like the roads look so incredible. And he's like by himself, and I'm like, how is this possible? I'm like, what road is he on? So just cutting through the mountain. You were in the same boat as me. It's like doing a road trip in Europe and kind of through. There's events over there that I am going to get to. The bucket list one is the Goodwood Festival Speed. That I have to get to. Like my son.
Yeah, I've never been, but I've heard it's amazing.
He sees it every year, and he's like, when are we going? I was like, we have to plan for this, but it's gonna, for me, like car events, like SEMA, I've been to auto shows in and out of this country too. Like my mother actually took me to Geneva. She's the one that flew me. I remember it was a surprise. She's like, we're going to Switzerland. We're going to the Geneva Auto Show. And I was like, this is like one of the best auto show, like traditional ones I've ever been to. So for me, auto shows like SEMA and the things I'm being able to experience, to me, they're like bucket list accomplishments. So like I get to go here and I get to go there as well.
Yeah.
Now, before everything is done, I'd like to thank you again for just being able to speak with me and just giving me the opportunity to talk to you and just sharing the passions we have about cars and the SEMA Show. If people want to get more in contact with the SEMA organization, what are some of the best ways that they could do that?
So our two websites are SEMA.org is like the main association. And then the stuff I do where you can find all the events is either SEMAshow.com or SEMAfest.com.
Okay.
But it all sort of connects. If you do a quick search on, SEMA itself or the Specialty Equipment Aftermarket Association, it is easily findable. But we're doing everything from representing the industry in DC with our lawmakers, to hosting events, to even creating things if you're in the industry and you want to participate in one of our councils or networks and literally have a voice on where the association's headed.
That's important.
We've got all that stuff there. So if you want to just be part of the industry, the other thing we've created is something called SEMA Plus, where just as a general consumer, you can join SEMA. It's, got a lot of different discounts on products and
I saw the sign for that when I was at the show last year.
Yeah. So we've got something for everybody.
That's nice.
If you've got an interest in automotive, we're here for you. And I got to tell you, you're not alone. Like there's a lot of people that are just like way into something about cars that they can't explain. Like I said, if I take something apart, it doesn't go back together. But I just love the idea of the automobile and the freedom and the passion that it brings. So
absolutely. Well, thank you. It was more than a pleasure talking with you, and I'll be there this year, and hopefully maybe we can cross paths. I might scout for you, try to find, but seeing the work you did last year, I look forward. I'm excited hearing about Larry Chen being associated. I'm really excited to see what it looks like this year, and hopefully to cross paths again and even talk to more people within your organization on your team, because what you guys do, I like to thank you for the work you do, because it is something that is special. I enjoyed it. I love the things that I've seen, even the years moving on, and even being able to be there in person. It kind of all came together as like, this is the reason why I've either been chasing coming here, or I do what I do and I keep doing it, because it's more than just, sometimes people look at it just a hobby. And sometimes hobbies can kind of get tossed around like, oh, you're just crocheting. But I tell people it's a hobby, but it's who I am. If you take away cars, you take away a part of who I am.
Yeah. No, it was a pleasure to meet you. Cameron, and we definitely have to shake hands at the show this year. So
absolutely, I'll make sure to find you to shake your hand. It was a pleasure talking
for sure.
to you.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Thanks a lot.